I'd like to welcome everyone to the Monday, December 16th regular meeting of the counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry. I'll ask the clerk to read the motion for call to order.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Broad, that the meeting of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry be hereby called to order.
All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. So adoption of the agenda. Are there any additions or anything to the agenda? Seeing nothing. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Fraser, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that Council approve the agenda.
All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none. Carried. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes of November 18th and December 3rd. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor Landry, that the minutes of the meetings of the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, including the in-camera minutes held November 18th and December 3rd, 2024, be adopted as circulated.
Heard the motion. Any errors or omissions? Anybody wants to comment on? Seeing none. All those in favor? It's carried. No delegations today. So we're scheduled at 6.1 to move into closed session. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Densham, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry proceed in camera pursuant to Section 239(2)E of the Municipal Act 2001. Litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board for a matter related to the official plan amendment number 23 appeal, and pursuant to section 239(2)C of the Municipal Act 2001, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board for a purchase and sale matter.
Everybody heard the question. All those in favor? Seeing none opposed, that's carried.
In an open session without reporting.
All those in favor? Any opposed? It's carried. That looks like next is 7.2, financial services, occupational accident insurance renewal. Rebecca, please.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Broad, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry accept the proposal from Chubb Insurance Company of Canada for the January 1st, 2025 renewal of the occupational accident insurance policy at a premium of $8,201 plus tax, and the excess workers' compensation indemnity policy at a premium of $59,904 plus tax, and that the Director of Financial Services and Treasurer be authorized to sign all necessary documents to give effect to the contracts.
Good morning, Council. So since the year 2000, SDG has been a WSIB Schedule II employer, which means that we don't pay for WSIB premiums on earnings. What we do is we pay for claims as they or should they occur. So should we become a Schedule I employer, it would result in approximate expenses of about $300,000 a year, which is a calculation based on earnings. So Chubb Insurance has been the only provider for this coverage, and we've had them since the inception of when we became a Schedule II employer, and we purchased this policy in the event of any significant WSIB claim. This policy covers the next calendar year for 2025. Any questions?
Anybody have any questions, concerns? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? None. Carried. Thank you. Next is 7.3A, commence appropriation proceedings, SDG County Road 22. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Densham, seconded by Councillor Fraser, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry authorize the commencement of expropriation proceedings for lands along SDG Road 22 from the limits of Maxville to Highway 138.
Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you very much. So what we're looking for is Council's approval to commence the formal process of expropriation, specifically for a property that's located, as shown on Figure 1 within the report. Myself, other staff, as well as the Mayor of North Stormont, we've been working very diligently to acquire the property that is necessary to support the work on County Road 22 that's intended to commence next year. Unfortunately, we just have not had success with one property, and we do have to start this process. Fortunately, in the process, if we can come to a resolution with the landowner at any given point, then that process stops and everything's resolved and finished. So that's obviously our hope. We're happy to continue to engage with the landowner and resolve it that way, but ultimately we do have to start this process so that we can line ourselves up to get this project done next year.
Thank you, Ben. Any questions, concerns? Councillor Densham.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I just want to thank staff. This type of activity is sensitive. It touches the public and their land, and staff has done a great job, and I want to thank our Mayor, Councillor Landry as well, handling this with sensitivity, and again, I think this is a very positive result, something that could have been a much more difficult thing for the public to accept. So thank you so much for all the hard work there.
Yeah, go ahead, Ben.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Warden. Absolutely agree, and I guess I'm remiss by not saying really appreciate the cooperation from the landowners on County Road 22 to get to this point. The fact that we, and I would suggest like it's just a really unfortunate we have not been able to communicate with this landowner. It's not that they have put a roadblock down and said over my dead body. It's just really unfortunately just unable to get that communication completed with this landowner, but everybody else has been fantastic and really understands the need for this project, and we've had excellent discussions with them, so it's been we look forward to getting going out there for sure, and I think that it'll be well received by the community.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? I'll ask the question. All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, it's carried. 7.3B, acquisition of various forest properties. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor Densham, that the Council of the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry support the acquisition of the McDonald and Chrétien woodlots.
Go ahead, Ben.
Thank you very much. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Phil Duncan, our forest coordinator, to talk about these properties, and really he deserves the credit because he's been working very closely with these landowners. Really what we're looking for, council, is some support to be able to acquire these properties. Both these landowners have been very willing to work with the counties in transferring the properties to us. So I'll again, defer it over to Phil to give some detail in terms of what this is all about. So,
hey, sure. Good morning, everybody. The first property in the report is the McDonald property. So this property is in the township of North Glengarry. It's divided amongst two parcels. Here you can see the southern parcel, and there's another parcel to the north end, which the landowner has expressed interest in donating to the counties. The property is owned by Alan McDonald. For those of you who know him, he's the archivist from the Glengarry counties, and has a wealth of knowledge of the property itself and the surrounding area. So it's been great to meet with him and discuss, the prior use of his property, dating back, to the late 1800s. And I've had the opportunity to walk this property twice now, and it's an absolutely beautiful property. It's very diverse, and the intent of this donor is to go through the federal eco-gift program, and this is an opportunity for the landowner to spread out the charitable receipt over a period of 10 years. So we're working with them on that. As you can see from the photos, we did a quick assessment of the forested land, which includes going out and documenting all the different tree species, the important ecological characteristics of the property. And one of the neat things about this is the donor's interest in donating some of the agricultural land as well, which amounts to close to 5.6 hectares. So in terms of acres, about 13 acres of forest or agricultural land, which would allow us to plant upwards of 12,000 trees on the property as well. The landowner has expressed interest in continuing on with passive recreational use, which would include just walking the trails and general nature appreciation, and no hunting for 10 years, which is very warranted for his situation. Mr. McDonald has invested quite a bit of time and effort into maintaining a trail network on his property, which he continues to maintain, and he has upwards of over 4 kilometers of trails through the property, which was really great for us because it made it easy walking and getting around. His interest in transferring the land is just a protection of the forested land, which he holds very dear to his heart. So we certainly appreciate him considering us for the donation. The second, oh, sorry.
No, good. Well, Councillor McDonald had a question. Maybe it pertains
no,
just to the one.
I just wanted to make a comment to Councillor Landry that is in the township of North Glengarry, and it was free.
Councillor Williams.
Just a quick comment on that. It is a I know that property well. It's a spectacular piece of land. What an incredible acquisition. And Al McDonald is a very community-minded and conservation-minded individual. And, well, hats go off to him for sure. And thank you for securing this.
Yes. All right. So the next property is owned by Francis Chrétien. He's a resident of South Glengarry, and this property totals close to 27 acres of land. From this zoomed-in portion, it's kind of hard to distinguish where this is, but it's just south of Williamstown, so he lives on Fraser Road. This property, as I had mentioned, has about 17 acres of forested land, being a mature tolerant hardwood stand. And by tolerant hardwoods, I mean maple, basswood, hickory with a component of hemlock, and of course ash as well. He's a longtime resident of South Glengarry, and he originally contacted us back in early November. So I asked him what his timelines were and when he wanted to start the process, and he said yesterday, so that's always good. So there was really no hesitation from Francis regarding the future of his woodlot. It's predominantly sugar maple, as I had mentioned, and it has a small sugar shack on the property, which is a really neat intrinsic feature of the property. It was built in the early 1900s, and then story has it a red oak fell on it and crushed it, and then was rebuilt in the late 70s. The last time that the maple had been tapped was in the early 80s, but the neighbors have expressed interest and are tapping the bush for small personal use maple tapping operation. This forest has been meticulously maintained by Francis and his family, and it's just an opportunity for us to acquire really one of the nicest maple bushes that I've been in throughout my time. It's Ben and I had a chance to visit it, and it is kind of out of this world. It has old growth characteristics, and some of the maples are absolutely gorgeous. So as well, the adjacent land, it's close to 10 acres of open farmland as well, and Francis understands the need for public access to these county forests, and he pretty well just said, well, you can have the farmland as well. So it's great and provides us with really great access to the woodlot and an opportunity for us to plant close to 10,000 trees on that open farmland as well. So just a really great opportunity. He did express interest in having no hunting on the property, being that it is relatively small and isolated, and then also expressed continued use of just personal recreation, walking, and that sort of thing. So.
Great. So I think, to both these two individuals who have reached out to us, really appreciate it. I think it's a fantastic, quite an honor for the counties to be considered for such a donation, or for those donations. And I do want to express my sincere gratitude to Phil and the hard work he's doing to work with these landowners. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So what we're looking for from council through this action request is just direction to proceed with the acquisitions. As part of the acquisitions, and I think reasonably to be expected, is all the costs associated with surveys and legal fees to be able to transfer that. That's something that we have historically at the county level taken on, and we'd recommend continuing to do that as well. One thing that I did want to note that we are working with a third property owner for a split donation sale, and that's something we'll talk about with council in a little bit more detail at a relatively soon to be had meeting. But what we'd like to do as well, as we're working through the process on the legal and survey with these two properties, is actually kind of continue that work on with that individual as well, just to make sense as we've engaged those professionals to do that work. So we did point that out in this report that there is a third property that we'll be talking with council on in the very near future.
Thanks, guys. Councillor Densham, and then Councillor Broad.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you. You can just hear the pride of ownership on these properties that are being either donated or partially sold. And it sounds like there's stories behind them. And I'm wondering whether or not we have a mechanism for the owners to share with us a story that's written that we can maintain and keep, so that in the future, if somebody wants to look back on how we came about these lands and some of the history behind them, it would be great to have them share their story in writing, so that could be passed down to people who visit or want to research the history in the future.
Thank you, Councillor. And I would definitely agree, both these gentlemen are definitely involved in their community and have cared about the community for many, many years. So, Councillor Broad.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. Through you, thank you for the presentation, and Phil and Ben, thank you for your continued work on this. Certainly support the acquisition of the lands, and what comes to mind is, in the last year we've expanded our urban boundaries, and tree canopies and local communities is always a topic of conversation as we continue to build more houses. But acquiring properties where we can plant 22,000 trees is significant, and I think that's certainly more than a trade-off of some of the urban development we may be looking at within our communities.
Thank you. Any further questions? Oh, Councillor Bergeron.
Thank you, Warden. I just have a curiosity question in that when people donate land, they have a choice between South Nation Conservation Authority or SDG. And I'm just wondering, are they choosing SDG just because Phil is a very pleasant person, or I'm just wondering how to decide which one they go. Sorry?
Does Phil want to comment on that, or?
Who's the pleasant person?
It's not my looks that's getting it
Okay,
done, so.
okay. So-
Anything further? Councillor McGillis?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Warden. Just further what Councillor Densham mentioned, do you think there's a possibility that, you know, as they walk in towards the bush or near the trails, we could have something with the story that you mentioned, the history of the property, and have a little plaque made and erected, and that way it's right there in writing, and it's, you know, it makes it nice to, when you walk in, you can read something.
Right,
I
Ben.
mean, through you, Mr. Warden, I think it's a great idea, and so that's actually what came to my mind as Councillor Densham was mentioning it. So we'll work with our communications staff and figure out something appropriate, because I do agree, like we do need to kind of tell the stories of these donations and the stories behind these properties. So we'll come up with something and let council know what that exactly looks like.
Thanks. Councillor McDonald?
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Warden. I think a nice one for that property, because you said it. Out of this world beauty, welcome to South Glengarry.
Anything further? So all those in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none is carried. Thank you. And we're on bylaws. So a personal policy manual update. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Densham, seconded by Councillor J. McDonald, that bylaw number 5475, being a bylaw to adopt revised policy number 1-20, a comprehensive personnel policy manual, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Ms. Summers, go ahead.
Through you, Mr. Warden, what we are proposing today is a review over the course of the next year of our personnel policy manual. This review will modernize some of the language, as well as bring our practices in line with the manual itself. And hopefully we're able to provide some enhancements, further clarity, and just be very transparent with our processes, with some adoptions of maybe some appendix as we go along. Today, what I'm proposing is a change effective January 1, 2025. It's an increase in the number of sick days compensated at 100%. As you can see in the report, there is a chart of the local sick days offerings from all the local municipalities as well as the county. And this became very evident that we had fallen behind. And so what we're asking today is just to increase our number of sick days compensated at 100% from 5 to 8 days per year for all of our county staff that fall under the PPM. This aligns actually quite nicely with some of the strategic plan initiatives, the one under staffing well-being, and it seems just like a logical step to make that change effective at the beginning of the year. Thank you.
Any comments or questions for Kristen? Councillor Williams?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'm just curious, let's say an individual doesn't use all of their sick days, what happens with those days?
Those sick days do have a opportunity to either be, I believe, paid out, or they get transferred at half of that amount. So 50% of the remaining amount at the end of the year are either cashed out or transferred over into the following year as vacation. So there is, that policy would stand, that portion of the policy would stand. The only increase that we're asking for is the 3 days.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All those in favor? Any opposed? None is carried. 9.2, Policy 1-33, Strategic Asset Management Policy.
It's moved by Councillor Landry, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that bylaw number 5476, being a bylaw to adopt the updated Strategic Asset Management Policy 1-33, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Everyone's favorite topic is asset management, I'm sure. So Ontario Regulation 58817, which is an asset management planning for municipal infrastructure, came into effect in January 2018. This regulation required municipalities to prepare a strategic asset management policy by July 1st, 2019, which SDG Counties did do in April 2019. The regulation requires a policy be reviewed and updated if required every 5 years. So we did have a very few updates. We revised wording in the policy that was attached to align with the SDG Counties branding. Throughout the document, it wasn't consistent. And Section 3, we updated it to incorporate the 2023-2026 SDG County Strategic Plan. Anything relating to the official plan hasn't changed. It still reflects the current official plan. So the next requirement under the regulation is to complete the next asset management phase, which is due July 1st, which is now blending both our non-core and our core infrastructure assets into one plan. And we will start looking at proposed levels of service. And that is due on July 1st, 2025.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. 9.3, red funding, historic SDG jail. And
It's moved by Councillor J. McDonald, seconded
unless
by
I screwed up, I think that's the right order.
The bylaw number 5477, being a bylaw to authorize a rural economic development program agreement with His Majesty the King of Right of Ontario as represented by the Minister of Agriculture, Food and Agribusiness, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
So good morning, Council. We're here today just to present the agreement for RED funding. So in 2021, we did a feasibility study for the jail through Lauren Christie Solutions, and the outcome of that was very much to continue offering tours, to increase our paranormal offerings, as well as do some updates to attract film. So to that end, we've applied for RED funding. We received $53,000, just over $53,000 for capital expenses, as well as an update for marketing. We're going to be doing some new jail panels, some new brochures, and then also hiring a part-time jail staff to help bring this project forward. Happy to take any questions.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Now we're on to mobile devices and service agreement, 9.4.
It's moved by Councillor Densham, seconded by Councillor Landry. The bylaw number 5478, being a bylaw to authorize an agreement between the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas and Glengarry and Rogers Communications Canada Incorporated for the provision of mobile devices, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
Thank you. Go ahead whenever you're ready, Mike.
Morning, Council. Thank you, through you, Mr. Warden. So I bring to, this morning we have a report in front of you to sign on with Rogers Communications Inc. for our cell phone devices and service. So just a bit of background. We've been with Bell since 2017, and the current contract lasts about a year ago. And while we're looking for alternatives to see if we're going to continue with Bell or look at other providers, we're informed that a new provincial vendor of record program was underway. And so we decided to kind of wait to see what would come out of that. So Rogers, again, was signed as the primary vendor, and they're now able to offer us the publicly funded organization contract. So the new Rogers agreement will significantly reduce our monthly service fees for cell services. Eventually, once we're totally ported over to Rogers, we'll save a minimum of $1,600 a month. So I say minimum because when I did the calculation, I looked at our current expenses and calculated what the maximum cost with Rogers would be. So based on current usage, we could squeeze out another $300 to $500 of savings a month by going with the Rogers plan. The thing to note, though, is that the subsidies on the hardware itself, it used to be 65% on new phones. Now it's anywhere from 35 to 50%, and the newer phones are even less of a subsidy, but we can definitely manage that as a management group. So some of the differences between the current agreement we have and the new Rogers is that currently when we get a subsidized device, we only have to commit for 2 years, but the new agreement is a 3-year commitment. That's not really an issue because most phones do last 3 years plus. And Bell is following suit in the new vendor record anyway, so whether we stick with Bell or Rogers, we still commit to that 3 years. Like I mentioned, the discount is a lot less, but It just means that the latest and greatest phones, if there is a business case to have it, we would pay more for it. But most times, you know, the iPhone right now is the iPhone 16. You could argue that the 14 is good enough for most of our uses. You know, you have communications and tourism, they might want the newer phone with the better camera, but most people generally just check email. So the, you know, two models behind is not. And if the battery starts dying on older phones, $100 to replace the battery, and your phone is almost as good as new. And again, Bell is offering slightly better discounts on the hardware, but their monthly costs are far exceed the what the overall cost would be. So coverage, that was a big factor here moving as well. So as you all know, SDG contributed $575,000 to the Eorn-Selgap project several years ago. The project is almost done. So what Rogers did is they gave us 5 test lines. So we had SIM cards installed on phones of some of our staff who were around the county anyway, and every now and then they do a speed test comparing Bell and Rogers. So there was nowhere we did the test that Rogers did not have service. There was multiple spots where Bell had zero service. You were hearing crickets, and you still had some Rogers coverage. And overall, the Rogers coverage was superior, a lot faster downloads and uploads than Bell. There are a few cases where Bell was better than Rogers, but at least you still had the Rogers coverage. So just to highlight a few things. So if we look at the patrol garages, so in Winchester Springs, we have Bell at 18 megabits download, but Rogers at 433. At Finch, Bell was 1.48, Rogers 64, and Green Valley 0.09. So basically you can say you don't have any cell service there, and Rogers was at 50. Kind of other places, so Maxville Library, again, like from 1.5 to almost 300. Chesterville from 1.33 to 241. Green Valley, again, almost no service with Bell to really good service with Rogers. Ingleside Library, I just wanted to put one in there where Bell was better. So Bell came in at 187 and Rogers was 8.19, but still had that, you know, from my perspective, that's still decent service. And I put in County Road 22 because we're going to be spending a lot of time there over the next year. So Bell was 1.88 megabits and Rogers at 46.6. So if you have any questions or discussion, welcome.
Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. That's really interesting data there. Have you shared that with Eorn by chance, with Jason?
Not at this time. We just kind of finished gathering it in time for this report, but we definitely will share.
Yeah, I think that would be very valuable. I sit on the Eorn board, and you know, occasionally we get the old, well, I went somewhere and I didn't get service, but. Right. I think, you know, some people, they think that it doesn't matter whether they've got Bell or Rogers, they should always have the same service. But right. The point being that these upgrades have actually worked. So
absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Further questions or comments? Councillor Burchell.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I just want to comment that I'm really happy that you did mention that there's no need to buy the latest model of phone, because they can be over $1,000 or $1,500. And just buying a new phone that's not the latest, it still works quite well and for the same length of time. So I was happy to hear that.
Yeah, if I may, Mr. Warden.
Yes.
Yeah, and in addition to that, there's also an opportunity to trade in old phones, so that could also manage the cost. So instead of just kind of having the old phone sitting in a shelf somewhere, Rogers will take them back at a couple $100, depending on the model and the age. So if we're, you know, we keep track of the phones and trade them in as we get new devices, then that's a way to reduce the cost as well.
Any further questions, comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. We're on to the consent agenda. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor J. McDonald, that all items listed under the consent agenda section of the agenda be adopted as presented.
Anybody have any comments or questions on the consent agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Boards and committees. And I guess the first one's me. It's going to be fairly short. Warden's report. I haven't been here very long, but just thank everybody. Much appreciated for Friday. It was a great day for myself, family, friends, and I appreciated it very much. Joint Liaison Committee. Mr. McDonald. Nope. Yes, maybe? Okay. I'll have to remember that. Tony Fraser's chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDonald, and through you, Mr. Warden. I believe believe we postponed or canceled the last meeting, so we haven't had a meeting since the last time we spoke.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Library Board, Mr. Broad.
I'll take the realm, even though Councillor Fraser is the vice chair. I take the notes for him. Thank you very much. And we were lucky enough that our last library board meeting was in the beautiful village of Morrisburg. Frank, that's at the Municipal Center, first floor. And as it was our volunteer appreciation night, and we recognized the volunteers throughout our communities. But at our board meeting, we did discuss a budget, which we brought forward a week ago that was passed. And other discussions that night were our accessibility policy, which we updated. We talked about our 2025 meeting dates and the specific topics. So the Library Association specifically spells out topics for us throughout the board meeting season. So we have them laid out for 2025. We did have a discussion about a reciprocal borrowing agreement with North Grenville, which we're going to continue to have conversations. But since that meeting, the nation have come forward and asked for us to allow temporary access to our library system as they're having difficulties with their system. And through the CAO and Rebecca Luck, they've approved that. So we're going to allow access, which is great to have folks in the community. I know Councillor Landry had mentioned that it affects a lot of folks maybe up in his area and his library. So appreciative of the group to make that happen.
Thank you, Councillor Broad. Police Services Board, Mr. McGillis.
Thank you. The acting detachment commander provided an overview. Just thinking, Simon Hardy. It was 14.2% increase 2025 for the 2025 budget. That is now reduced to 10%, which it, because of the province provided $77 million financial relief to municipalities to offset the municipal cost for to 330 municipalities in Ontario which provide OPP services. So that cost is reduced quite a bit, which we were happy to hear. And there was a lot of that's everything in total in the terms of the fixed costs for services. So there's still a significant, not as much, but an increase as well for the upcoming year for the 2025. Is there anything maybe I missed that we can add? I think that's it.
Thank you, Councillor McGillis. Eastern Ontario Health Unit. I can't remember if
I missed the last meeting.
All right, I guess I can do a little report on the health unit then. Meeting was November 21st. Just some updates. RSV is up and running. They wanted to get up and running so that all newborns were vaccinated in the hospital before they left, and I think that's up and running now. Working to get everybody under 1 year of age caught up, because that's the risky time. So to try to get anybody that has already been born before they get up and running to catch up on the 1-year-olds. Watching the bird flu closely. The thing with the bird flu is right now it's not being transmitted human to human. They're worried that if it does mutate and become transmittable, they fear that it might have a 30% fatality rate, which would be devastating. So they're really watching that closely, see what happens, and I think they're working on vaccines and so forth. Mental health program, they're in the area looking to fill gaps, follow up on post-care, and the Hawkesbury Clinic, I think they've broken ground and they're up and moving. So I think they were hopeful that it was going to be going very early in the new year, but I think now we're thinking spring. And that's all I had. Can you go ahead, Carmen?
Thank you, Mr. Warden. One other thing, Warden Lang and myself attended the holiday luncheon that the health unit puts on every year, and it was an outstanding attendance. The Bonnie Glen was full, and they had a half day of activities for all of the staff. It was very well attended, and there appears to be a really excellent sort of staff morale at the health unit, which was really good to see. And it was absolutely hilarious to see Dr. Paul do yoga.
Thank you. Glenstore Dunn Lodge.
Next
Councillor
meeting,
Broad.
January 15th. Next meeting, January 15th.
St. Lawrence River Institute. Councillor Gaynell.
Nothing to report.
Thank you. Raisin South Nation Source Water Protection Committee, nothing. Municipal Advisory, Algonquin Land, Mr. Fraser, nothing. Eastern Ontario Agri-Food Network, Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. At the last meeting, I resigned from the board, given the fact that the SDG Counties is no longer funding the organization. It didn't really make sense to kind of have a seat on the board. So I made my resignation, and if that situation changes in the future, well, then it can be addressed at that time.
Okay, thank you. Regional Incentives Program Approval Committee, was nothing. Rural Education Committee.
Yeah, thank you, Warden. We did meet on November 28th. We had a delegation from Cameron Jones, principal from the Upper Canada School Board. He was showcasing the Real World Learning Program, which is hands-on learning programs offered in various schools throughout. The committee will continue watching the enrollment and building usage data, especially for schools that were originally proposed to be closed, just to see what the trends are. And in the near future, we will invite Minister Quinn to a roundtable discussion about rural education.
Thank you. Social Development Council.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. On December the 11th, 50 community partners met to review the results of the Service Accessibility Survey. And this was put together by students at St. Lawrence College. And actually the findings are interesting. And they will focus on the following: addressing barriers to accessing services in SDG and Akwesasne, enhancing organizational and community equity, diversion, and inclusion, address waitlist concerns in healthcare and mental health, community awareness campaigns about existing services. And this is an interesting one because we often hear that services are not adequate, and people are searching for services they can't access, and in some cases they simply don't know about them. So that's an interesting piece that the Social Development Council can help kind of get that information out there. Enhancing accessibility for persons with disabilities, and addressing after-hours services, and enhancing Facebook and collaboration. So some interesting work there. Thank you.
SDG Forest Working Group hasn't been a meeting, but as everybody noticed in the reports today, Phil's been very busy. And we're on to key information, Hollister Pipes. Mr. Don.
Thank you. So I just wanted to give council a quick update. If you've driven on County Road 31 north of Winchester Springs, you may have seen some activity taking place out there. We were fortunate enough as we were closing up 2024, recognized we had some available funds, and Hollister Pipes is one of these projects where it's kind of been in the back of my mind back of our mind and other staff members' minds for some time. There's a little bit of a historical story with the Hollister Pipe. So in the 1970s, there was a lot of flooding as a result of flows in the South Nation River. And this area of County Road 31 would historically flood. So Ministry owned County Road 31 at the time, installed 12 large diameter pipes under the roadway. Then, of course, channelization and improvements to the river levels happened, and these pipes really didn't serve any purpose beyond being out there in kind of these big pipes that are not conveying water. So they've been sitting and essentially deteriorating in place. In 2018, we did a hydraulic analysis of those pipes just to determine what we actually needed, just based on ditches and potential flows through these areas or through these pipes. And it was identified that we actually could get rid of a majority of them. They aren't at a point where they are completely deteriorated, but they're at a point where we need to start thinking about it. So what we did this year is, with the available funds we had, the counties, it's a little bit of a different procurement model than we would normally undertake for such a project, but it's a procurement model that I think actually is quite financially beneficial to the organization. Because it gives us some flexibility in terms of how we're delivering it and the ability to kind of manage the finances and make sure we're not overspending to what we actually have. So one of the challenges is we do need to have a special concrete pump, which you can kind of see in that bottom left picture. That's something available that Louis Bray Construction has. They also have the expertise. They've done this kind of work in the past. So what we're doing is we've procured all the materials separately. So we've gone and done competitive procurement for pipes, all the lumber and concrete and things that we need, and then working with Louis Bray Construction with their specialized crew on an hourly basis to be able to insert and fill the pipes that we need to maintain to provide the hydraulic capacity. And then with the other ones, we're going to abandon it. So we don't have enough money to do all of that work this year, but we are doing the technically challenging part of it, which is the insert and grout. So well underway right now, and I'm very pleased that we're able to complete this work this year. One of the biggest benefits is that this is technically all of these pipes together technically are a bridge asset, and we'll be able to get rid of that asset, quite frankly, and so they'll just be culverts going forward. So we don't have to inspect them on every 2 years. There'll be brand new conditions, so it's something that we won't have to look at again, certainly in our careers around this table. So, good news story that I wanted to share with council.
Thank you very much. Any questions for Mr. Don? Nothing. And next is administrative update.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. So not much of an update. I've just provided a bit of my calendar from the month of November. Certainly want to remind everybody when we come back in January, preparation for the Roma conference. I also wanted to just highlight some of the hours for our holiday closure. We will make sure on the social media and communication side that everything is well noted and communicated so that residents are aware. A couple of ongoing recruitments. And I think I also wanted to take a moment and let council know, as you've walked through the building today, you've probably noticed a few things are a little bit different. So there is a Christmas decorating contest that has occurred amongst the departments. So we would like to encourage council after the meeting to tour around and cast your vote. We also have planned a staff luncheon today as a Christmas lunch. So I just wanted to put that on everybody's calendar, and then and food will be coming in a little bit early, understanding that our meeting is almost wrapped up. So with that, thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you. Any questions for CEO? Seeing none, before we get to, looks like ratifications next, before we get to that, there's something pretty exciting has happened in the last few weeks. Extremely exciting, actually, and I wonder if Councillor Gaindo could come up to the side here and our CAO. I guess we have people watching, so maybe we better say what it was, eh? Councillor Gaindo has a baby. Congratulations. It's exciting to start the process. Do you want to say a few words, or?
Yeah, first of all, thank you, everyone. I wasn't expecting anything. But yes, Emily and I had our first child on the 24th, Lachlan James Gaindo, not named after the mayor, just... Yeah. No, baby's doing well, mom's doing well. We're very excited. Not sleeping very much, but apparently that's par for the course. Thanks, everybody.
Excellent. Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor J. McDonald, seconded by Councillor Densham, that bylaw number 5479, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed.
All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. And just before we go to adjournment, I think is the last one, unless I've missed something. Just like to, last meeting before the Christmas holidays, so I want to extend thanks to everybody, especially, council and staff. Everybody has put a lot of efforts into making this year what it is, and I think we've got a lot done, and a lot of things have happened, and it's exciting. And to our residents, I want to thank you for your support and your contributions to the counties. It's a wonderful place to call home. I think maybe the best place in the world to call home. And I wish everyone a Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and hope your next 2025 is filled with happiness and health. So, Madam Clerk.
It's moved by Councillor Broad, seconded by Councillor St. Pierre, that council adjourn to the call of the chair.
All those in favor? Thank you.